Right, so let's go ahead and make this the floor section to go underneath the fracture here. So I'm going to do it in here in the city. Delete that, something else I was doing. Because I need to use parts of the fracture here as well. Okay, so I'm going to grab not this, not the terrain, not the city, sorry, in the fracture part here. Okay, because yeah, we're going to need some part of this for another trigger as well. But first of all, let's just make this grid. Let me turn on Ghost Other Objects and visualize the city correctly. Okay, back into here. I'm going to make a grid, move that over here and make it bigger so it fills the screen. Maybe a nice round number, 50 by 50 and -10, and then give it some more geometry. Something like that should be fine. Let me just take a look at the fracture here. Yeah, that should be fine. So what I'm going to do is just delete the points, the parts of the grid which are underneath the simulation. Let's grab the what is it? This brush selection. And then I can just grab all of these. There we go, and then just delete. And so yeah, at the moment this is kind of concave geometry. So what I can do is if I use a a facet, what this will do is separate every piece of geometry. If I check unique points, right? I'll use an exploded view to show you what I mean. See that? So I've got separate primitives now. Without the facet, it's one whole island. Okay, so get rid of that, turn the facet back on, and then if we assemble this, give it a create pack geometry, give it a name, we'll call it floor, transfer the name as well, drop a null, and then out floor, and then we'll connect that up to our simulation as well. We'll drop another IBD packed object. Where are you? There. Okay, and then we need to find the path to this. Not in city, in fracture, out floor. Connect that up. You could mix all these together and just set up the attributes beforehand, but it doesn't matter either way. We can do it like this as well. I don't want active objects, I want a static object. And then let's just check guide geometry there, so you can see the agents won't fall through there. Maybe this gap here they will fall through. Let's see, maybe I'll just move it, transfer it over a bit. We just see that. Let's see if I make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Excuse me, and then just move it in X tiny bit. There we go. So that plugs that hole there. Cool. What else? So that's all set up fine. Now back in the fracture, for the trigger, what we need to do, we're going to use a trigger which measures the distance of the agent from another point. And basically I'm going to use the points on the ground to trigger the agents into ragdoll. So if there's nothing underneath them, then they will become ragdolls. So I need this to be part of that, and also the surface of of the RVD simulation as well, right? So, right, what I need is another one of these transform pieces. Well, I guess we could use this as well. Let me think, but not packed. So, yeah, I'm going to grab this. No, we don't need to do another one. I can just branch off from here. But I need another transform pieces where it's not packed. Or I suppose... No, I could grab the same one. So I'm just going to cancel that. It's trying to run this again. Let's see, if I unpack this. Okay, I don't need the name. And then I'm going to delete based on the normals. Not detangle, delete. And let's see, we can delete based on the normals. So in -1, I think we delete them and then bring down the spread angle. So you can see that what's happening if I zoom in is deleting primitives based on the normal. Okay, so if I push that to about 140, there seems to be fine. Okay, because I just want the surface. I'm not interested in the in these ones, so maybe I'll have to push that down again. I'll raise it up, sorry. Basically almost 180, so if we do 79, there we go, that should give us all the primitives at the top. Great, and we're going to merge these together. Okay. Drop a null. Call this out floor trigger. Floor trigger there. I probably will need more points, so let's use a divide. Drop that in and we use this brick of polygons. Turn off all of these, okay, and then just use this brick of polygons. And we're only really interested in the X and Z scale. So bring that down. Let's say try 0.1. That's probably a bit excessive. I don't know. Takes a bit of time to calculate, but we need that subdivision because we're measuring the agent's distance from one of these points. Okay, we need the same thing on the floor. The problem here now, this is going to calculate per frame, so I will, I'm going to do another transform pieces and do all of this before I transform it. See, because I needed to divide before before we transform it, before we move it. And make sure we get that delete in there as well. Just going to set this to manual for a minute and set it up properly. Okay, let's check that, set it back to auto, and hopefully that will update correctly. There we go. So now, yeah, we got just the surface of the points of the simulation being transformed, but we've got this extra subdivision on there, and the same on this grid as well. But that's not showing up, maybe because of this. That's why. So this is packed, right? So we need to unpack it before we do any of this dividing stuff. So I'll just grab this divide, chop that up, drop that in there, unpack this again, and then now it should divide. Cool, so we got that extra geometry on there. So this should be ready to go now. Let me just drop normals on there. Don't really need it, but just so it looks nice. And jump back into our sim. Okay, let's turn. We don't want to see that, it runs slower. So yeah, we want another trigger. And what we're going to use is, so we'll find that link. Well, not, let's set it to object distance, I believe. So yeah, object distance, and let's go and find those points, floor trigger. And the comparison, so if the distance from those points is more than 0.1, then it will trigger into ragdoll. So to connect these together, you'd think that you could just use a merge, but this is, in a sense, is like an if statement, right? So when we have two arguments, we need some kind of logic to connect them. So if we grab a crowd trigger logic, you can see here we've got the typical kind of if or statement components, right? So and would be, we need this and this to be true for this to happen, but we don't want that. We want either this or this, right? Either one can be true, so we need or. So if we get hit by a piece of ABD blocks, or if the floor is far away, then turn into a ragdoll. Okay, and yeah, if the distance is more than 0.1, they should become ragdolls, and you can see the guide for that there now. Good. Okay, so I think that's it. So as I said, yeah, that floor part is a bit more complex than it seems like it should be, but there we are. So let's take a look. Maybe I'll turn off the guide. It's just a bit distracting. Go into full screen. One more thing actually before we finish this. I'm going to jump into my fracture. And I'm going to view this. Okay. And I'm going to add something to the avoidance. I'll view that. And because the avoid is in the city, let's go in there. We'll make it in there and turn on the show all objects. Okay, I'm going to drop a sphere. Basically what I want is the agents to run away from the fracture. Okay, so yeah, we need an object for them to run away from. So I'm going to drop a sphere which follows along in the direction of the fracture, right? So set this to polygon mesh. I'm going to drop a keyframe with both the radius and the center where it is, and then go to the end of the fracture and then stretch it along like that. Okay, give it another keyframe, and then hopefully you can see it pretty much follows the fracture as it goes along. And then I'm going to tell the agents to avoid this object. Okay, so as there's a hole, it's like they get scared of it and run away in this direction. So I'm going to drop another null for this and add this to, well, we can just merge this with the other avoid, which is here. Okay, drop a merge. Just line that up nicely. Great. Okay, so let's jump back into our sim and run a flipbook on this to full size. and okay. I just cancelled my flipbook because I noticed the agents all turned into ragdoll straight away. That's because I'd left it set on the default, which is centroid. Yeah, centroid, but we need closest point. Okay, so make sure you change the trigger of this object distance to closest point. And let's try again, take 2. Right, so that's all done. Didn't take too long, but it all seems to be working so far. Yeah, we're not getting any agents walking along here anymore. They'll be converted to ragdoll as soon as they go in. Can see the agents are kind of staying away from the hole, but then also staying away from the building, so they're kind of in between the two. Yeah, what I'll probably do is cache this out, and then I can pick and choose any agents I want to delete. You know, any changes I want to make there, like this guy, you know, going kind of flickering and going crazy. One thing you can add, is up to you, I'm not going to do it here, is so the collision of the blocks when they hit the agent, that's based on the RBD object, which is the block, right? So if I come out here, and you can see, you can actually select the crowd object as a collision object for this trigger as well. So that means if they run into each other, if they collide into each other, into a ragdoll version, or if not, even if the just two of them run into each other, then they'll be triggered into ragdolls. But I find it a bit too, I don't know, if they come close to each other, then they just turn into ragdolls, and it doesn't really make sense. But it's something you can do. It's another option.